Welcome back, NVA fans. We are fresh off of event number 2 in Atlantic City and now heading to the West Coast in San Bernardino for event number 3. But before we get into the importance of event number 3, let's take a look back at event number 2 and see exactly how the teams finished up the events. Check it out.
The Dallas Tornadoes are currently in 5th place in the National Conference with an 0-6 record. They were able to score their first point in a 2-3 set loss to Southern Exposure. They also lost to the LA Blaze and Texas Tyrants during the event, but had a good showing and upgraded their roster with right side Felix Chapman. After a tough event 1 going 0-3, the OC Stunners rallied back and added a couple of new pieces to their roster. They went 2-1 on the weekend, upsetting the Las Vegas Ramblers and taking down the Ontario Matadors. They lost to the Utah Stingers in a real nail-biter, finishing them for 2-1 on the weekend. They currently stand with 7 points and are in 4th place in the National Conference. The Ontario Matadors had one of the most difficult weekends, having to overcome Team Freedom, but falling to the Chicago Untouchables and the Utah Stingers. They finished the weekend 1-2, moving them to 3rd place in the National Conference with a total of 8 points. Southern Exposure was trading wins all weekend long. They were able to take down the Dallas Tornadoes, but fell to the Texas Tyrants and the Chicago Untouchables. That brings their record to 3-3 on the season and to a total of 7 points, putting them in 2nd place in the National Conference. Team Freedom was 5-0 heading into Sunday after taking down the Utah Stingers and the LA Blaze, looking like they might be the only team in the league to remain undefeated. However, in a tough National Conference head-to-head against the Ontario Matadors, they took their first loss in 3 straight sets. That brings Team Freedom to a total of 5-1 record, but locks them in at 1st place in the National Conference with 13 points. The LA Blaze had some of their toughest matchups all in one weekend. They went 0-3, currently locking them into last place in the American Conference, scoring 6 total points and with an overall record of 2-4. After a tough 0-3 event 1, the Chicago Untouchables added a couple more key components to their roster and came back in event 2 ready to take some wins. They went 3-0 on the weekend, taking down Southern Exposure, Ontario Matadors, and the Dallas Tornadoes. That puts them in total at a 3-3 record, now currently sitting in 4th place in the American Conference. The Texas Tyrants had the most difficult event number 1, where they finished 1-2 against the Las Vegas Ramblers, the Utah Stingers, and the OC Stunners. During event number 2, they were able to answer back beautifully with a 3-0 weekend, where they took down the Dallas Tornadoes, Ontario Matadors, and Southern Exposure. That moved them into 3rd place on the American Conference with a 4-2 overall record and 12 points. The Utah Stingers had a tough weekend going 1-2, missing some key personnel. They were able to beat the OC Stunners, but fell to the Las Vegas Ramblers and Team Freedom. That moves them to a 4-2 overall record with 13 total points, just 1 point ahead of the 3rd place team, the Texas Tyrants, in the American Conference. Sitting now in 1st place in the American Conference, the Las Vegas Ramblers had a 2-1 weekend, taking down the Utah Stingers and the LA Blaze. They lost to the OC Stunners in 4 sets, but locked themselves into 1st place in the American Conference with the best record and most points overall in the league, currently sitting at 14.
As the regular season wraps up this weekend in San Bernardino, California, stay tuned and make sure to follow us on NVA USA Instagram, YouTube, as well as NVAUSA.com as we have more updates coming up this weekend. Stay tuned. We'll see you then.